You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch movies and TV about... My first thought was about...
Yorick?
Gridlocked grannies.
Grannies! I bolded that phrase in my notes.
So gross.
It is, but honestly, like, sometimes the names, the code words that they have for these patients, like, I've also got code words for them in my notes,
right.
and Gridlocked Granny is just is gold.
Dana's so good. It's so
Yeah,
funny.
it's pretty perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're Andrea.
And you're Jody.
I almost said you're Jody. You're Andrea. And we are, what time is it now? It's 11 a.m.?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. in the pit.
In the pit.
How did you feel about this one before we start?
I know that a lot of people, and I sort of get it, and especially because the last few episodes of season 1 were so high stakes and so intense. So I get if you are ready for things to really start happening. But in general, I've never had a problem with a slow burn. I was thinking about it the other day because I was like, oh, people, I'll bet, are getting frustrated. And it reminded me of conversations we've had about Yellow Jackets to a lesser degree, because that show is so extreme, of like, you can watch that show, and if what you really care about is the mystery and the plot, you're going to be frustrated. If what you're watching is for, to watch
bunch of like hot 40-something women like having capers together.
Exactly. Then you're going to be so happy. And if you're somebody who likes a little bit of both, and I really think I'm just kind of happy to continue hanging out in this emergency department. So
yeah.
How about you?
I know I'm one of the people that's been kind of like, I'm ready for this to get going, and I am, but also I'm not displeased at all to be spending this time with these people. I told you before we started, I found a recap from Linda Holmes at NPR, who does the Pop Culture Happy Hour podcast.
Yeah,
and
I like her a lot.
There was just some real gems in this recap. And this really nailed it for me. She said, if the first season was about acute problems, the second is about more chronic ones. Trauma has a long tail. It does not resolve from one good cry. Addiction is a daily threat.
Yes.
A breach of trust like Langdon's drags on, messy and awkward. Santos had a bad first day with her colleagues, and even as she's gotten more professional and she's made a friend or two, she's thrown by Langdon's return and suspects that everyone blames her for turning him in over the pills. And so I think that the acute versus chronic thing is a really good metaphor, because we are seeing the long tail of PTSD and trauma for these people, right? And we talked last week a little bit about how I was starting to track like people's levels of competence and how they're doing. And I'm still doing that. I feel like I've got track changes on. I'm like, okay, so, Robbie is a little bit more off today or this hour than he was the previous hour. Santos was pretty on it at the beginning, and then she saw Langdon, and Alashimi started kind of threatening her, basically. And so I'm watching each of these people's performance kind of go up and down, you know?
Yeah. I really like that. I think that's one of the things, too, is with the patients being a little slower and, like, them taking their time, we get a little more time to watch those subtle shifts with our doctors and nurses and...
Because, like, we've really appreciated Whitaker's, like, glow up, not just the haircut, but, like, his clear ability to calmly handle what's being thrown at him and with still keeping his, like, compassion and empathy, and how different that is from who he was 9 or 10 months ago in the show timeline. And I think that, like, we're still just seeing one day, but, we can kind of track. And before we really get into the recap, I also want to touch on something we talked about last week, because I had said that I was wondering if what Al-Hashimi was doing with her change in attitude towards Robbie was not flirtation because she finds that she wants to flirt with him, but was sort of strategic in the way she's dealing with him. And we'll talk about what she says to him this week. But my question at the time was, is this something that I'm wishing was the subtext, or is it actually there?
Right.
And I went and looked up who the writers were of that episode. The writers of that episode are 2 women of color and the medical consultant.
It would be really
And so now I'm like, okay, maybe I have more faith in this theory and hope than I did before, because I looked at the writers on the first 5 episodes of this season, and there's been a woman of color on every single episode. And like Noah Wiley has come in and out, and, the other creators have come in and out on different episodes. They always have a medical consultant credited as a writer. But I will say that Cynthia Adarkwa, I believe, and Valerie Chu has been on almost every episode, if not all of them. Who is an East Asian woman, and Cynthia Adarkwa is a Black woman, I believe. And then there's even on one of the other episodes, there was another name, and I was like, oh, who's that? It was another woman of color, and from an Indian American family. And so I do think that the people in the room are who we would hope they were,
right? Writing these
conversations. So
that's reassuring.
It is. I'm a little bit more hopeful that maybe when we talked about how we hope that they're actually playing with our perception of Noah Wiley feeding into our excusing Robbie for some bad behavior, that it's actually been set up that way on purpose. And so I'm a little more hopeful now than I was about that.
Yeah, that's, I'm like cautiously reassured. That is, yeah. The show's doing such a good job of, and I have to think, too, part of why, like, listening back when I'm editing an episode, I'll be like, oh, I said that, but I think I actually agree with the opposite. Oh, but maybe. And it's hard to have characters on a TV show where you can feel 3 or 4 different ways about their behaviors if the writing isn't really solid, And so it's not that, like, so that feels like, I guess that's
to kind of tag onto that, like the same article by Linda Holmes, she said exactly what you're saying. She said, it's a season of great complexity, not only because these problems are seen through a longer lens, but also because everyone is sometimes right. Right. While Al-Hashimi originally presents as a thorn in Robbie's side, and while her interest in using generative AI for doctor's notes is a red flag for him and meant to be one for the audience too, she turns out to be a compassionate, thorough teacher, which I want to talk about, and an advocate for patients, not to mention a pretty quick study of Robbie's severe case of senioritis and how to navigate it.
Senioritis is so funny.
I know, but I like the idea that everyone is sometimes right.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like this is the bad person and that's the good person.
That's why I don't, for as much as I joke about I've loved Santos all the time and always will and never had a bad thing to say about her, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's why I don't feel like there are a lot of conversations online right now about why people think other people are responding specifically to Dr. Al-Hashmi and to Santos the way that they do. And I don't feel like those are 2 people where I need to do a ton of reflecting, because these characters are complex and they have made decisions that are frustrating and not great, and then also have done really like thoughtful, good, redeeming things. And so I think it's totally okay to be aware of that.
Yeah.
As opposed to the one thing where maybe I do need to do a little self-reflection and I refuse is in challenging Robbie. Like, I understand that that's a problem.
This is the last thing I'm going to read, but I noted this as well because I did this for you. I learned it by watching you. She's talking about Robbie, and she says, it's not that Robbie was good and is now bad. It's that what was a one-day window into his life is now a nearly year-long window. There were times in the first season where his compassion and patience felt bottomless. They were not. His reflexive kindness seemed unchangeable. It was not. And while it's bad and sad when trauma drives someone into an explosive meltdown, it's worse and sadder when pain digs in untreated, and the natural defensive strategy is numbness and attachment. Yeah. That's the danger to Robbie now. It's less dramatic than seeing him collapse and sob, but it's perhaps more insidious and difficult to reverse.
Oh, that gave me chills.
It's so good.
That's exactly it.
Like Linda Holmes, well done, A+. Because we're seeing the hardening of like he broke during the mass shooting, and instead of doing the reflecting, like we said, he was having such a hard time seeing Langdon in this moment, and part of that being that Langdon has done the work and like may not be perfect, but he's trying, It's instead of doing any of that, Robbie got a motorcycle and started reading like 1970s philosophical novels and stops wearing a helmet. Like,
right.
Men will do anything but go to therapy.
That's right.
Sorry to the few men that are listening.
Tough.
Most of the men in my life actually have gone to therapy, which I appreciate.
I don't keep too many around who haven't. So before we get into this episode proper, I want to share a text message that we got in between our recording of the last episode, our recap of hour 4 and this one. And I'm sharing it here because it's about that last episode. We got it after you and I recorded. So I just want to we are so locked in with our listeners and with the people who are watching the Pit. And I just want to share this. It's from somebody who didn't leave their name. But it says, "Hi ladies, enjoying the pod."
Wait. We can call them Melissa.
Oh yeah, this is Melissa.
It's a Melissa.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All of our listeners are Melissas. Yeah.
That's so funny. Hi, ladies. Enjoying the pod. First, love the shout out to Bottle Rocket. I live in Pittsburgh and in that neighborhood. It's a 5-minute walk away from me. I wish I'd seen this first and I would have invited you out to the show. Amazing place. It is. Bottle Rocket rules. Second, I wanted to raise a few things it seems people on Reddit discussions have missed. One, Garcia making a comment about the parkour girl, like she was interested in her. I would have let her stay if she asked, which you and I didn't clock, but there are a couple of Garcia said, and I didn't mention this in the last episode, but she's talking about, I think it's about, Ogilvy being ambitious. She says somebody's ambitious. And then she says, reminds me of somebody I know very well. And it's like, yes, we get it, Garcia. We know.
Yeah. How well do you know Santos, Garcia?
Exactly.
Why don't you explain?
This listener said, could be nothing, but wasn't Santos in the room with her? We know they're the thing. Now, 2, Jesse, the nurse, blowing Whitaker off when he wanted to get those monitor things on his back. Whitaker is a doctor, even though a young one, and Jesse basically said he wasn't going to do what he wanted him to do, and lied that he had a septic patient, which I missed. Are people annoyed with Whitaker because he's Robbie's current fave?
I mean,
which is
maybe.
Yeah. But then here's the one that you noted that I was like, oh, good eye. And then the last point in this text is number 3. Dana's making minor mistakes, which you called out. And so I was watching. Yeah. We didn't get as much opportunity for her to do that this week, but it is something that, and that actually floats back to what you were saying last week and what Linda Holmes said in that article that she's dealing with
a lot. And I want to quickly jump back to that point the texter made about Whitaker being the teacher's pet, because I do think that there is a way that could rub a lot of people the wrong way, especially if Robbie is being more and more difficult. Like, that same article on NPR, the point was well made that, Robbie lost his protege to rehab, and he had a lot of people to choose from to make his new project. Most of them are women and many women of color. And he chose Whitaker. And so, not saying that it's like, oh, Robbie's racist or whatever, but like we all have these internalized, like, we're more comfortable with people that look like us,
Right.
And that's why in these male-dominated professions, men continue to rise because they're mentored in ways that women aren't.
That's right.
And so... yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. And Whitaker was the one who found him in his moment of silent reflection. And so, of course, he's going to feel
they
more
bonded.
Like that all makes sense. But there's also, it's a two-way street there. Or it's like a chicken or the egg thing. But
yeah. One or two more little things before we go and do our rounds, which is what I'm calling this now. I watched a couple really amazing interviews with Joanna Coelho, the director of photography. We should link to one of them in the show notes because it's so interesting to me how when they talk about the look of the show, there is something really specific to it that until I was watching those interviews with her, I hadn't really clocked why it was specific. And it really is to do with the camera work and the technology they're using. And so ER was kind of a pioneer show of the Steadicam. ER, not related to the Pitt TM.
Of course not.
But, the Steadicam is why it looks the way it does. And specifically for the Pitt, they wanted to be able to move in choreography with the doctors and nurses and be very flexible. But they didn't want it to be shaky like Handycam, but they didn't want it to be like super smooth either.
Right.
And so they're using something called a ZG rig, which is kind of the middle ground of those two things. And so it makes it so you're not like constantly jostled around, but also it doesn't feel as smooth and movie-like as it would with a Steadicam. It's fascinating to me as so like a camera nerd, but it really now that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And like she talked about how because things move so fast in an ER and in this ER in particular, when they're playing with focus pulling, which they do a lot to kind of like when conversations are happening, you'll kind of flip back and forth. They do a thing where sometimes the camera is a little late to shift to the person talking and the other person will like finish what they're saying with the camera not on them. And it's like mimicking really fast paced conversation because you're kind of like catching up as you go. It's just so smartly done.
That's so cool. I noticed that's so funny. I've noticed that specific thing when I've gone to make like our edits, where I'll be what am I trying to say? I'll be like reformatting the aspect ratio.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when I go to cut in between, it's really hard to line that up because I'll want it on somebody's face, but I won't have
They've
them
intentionally.
Yet. And that's really interesting.
And they're only shooting with 2 cameras and 2 lenses the whole time. They're shooting with like a normal lens, meaning the focal length is mimicking normal human sight. It's like a 50 millimeter. And then 75, which isn't really that big of a zoom. And so like every time we're watching them walk through the halls or do a procedure, you can imagine 2 camera people in that crowd constantly ducking out of the way of each other's shot. And like,
I would love to watch.
It's like magic. And the way that they shoot conversations, right? They've got one camera on one person's face, one on the other, and they're constantly having to like get out of the way. And like, but they do this because they don't want to have to go back and reset the shots. So because it won't feel as like smooth, like the goal is for it to almost feel like a oneer the whole time.
Well, that's what I said to you last season is there were a few times where I was like, whoa, was that a oneer? And then it's not. It's just so seamless.
And it's because they're shooting everything with those 2 cameras, like right along with the actors. And they do rehearsals ahead of time for like the paths they're going to go on. And so they often don't have to go back and reshoot coverage or anything because they're basically like getting multiple angles and making sure that like they know what they need to get and that they don't ever like it sounds almost improvisational, which is really cool. Like she talked about how between season 1 and season 2, the camera operators, they had to hire a new person just to spell one of the camera operators so they weren't like on their feet 12 hours a day. And basically, she said it was super interesting to watch that camera person like unlearn the way they had shot before to let themselves get into this sort of flow state with like the actors and the other camera person where they're kind of all moving as this one big body. It's so cool. Like it's just as a camera nerd, like I found it fascinating.
And just as like I'm wondering, because just roll with me here. I might, I mean, I'm not smart and also I'm kind of an idiot. Like, both of those things. So this show feels more like any other show that I've watched, that you're in it with them and what you're explaining of how they do that. And the fact that it is just those 2 lenses and basically 2 cameras. So you're not like your brain can kind of just settle into that. You're not like, so that all makes sense to me. And I wonder if that's part of why I feel so strongly about these people. Like, so
that's
much
the intention,
the writing and the performances, of course. But there are lots of shows with great writing and great performances. And I just wonder if it's because it's like I'm in this.
You're in
this room with them. I'm looking at fascinating.
I mean, when you're shooting with a 50 millimeter lens, especially on video, like you have to be pretty close to the people you're photographing or you're taking video of because you it allows you to get much more of the room in the frame. But then if you want to get close to the person's face, you do have to kind of move into their space.
Right.
And so I think that there is something to that.
That's
like
so cool.
Yeah, they talked about that. So I'll send you a link to that video just for yourself as well.
Yeah, and I'll absolutely put that in the show notes. That's very cool.
Yeah. Before the last thing, I know I said we're gonna start recapping, but I have a question that came up for me during this watch that I want to hear your thoughts on.
Okay.
If you had a medical emergency in Pittsburgh when you were there, thankfully you didn't, and you went into our hospital, not the actual Allegheny County hospital, who's the doctor you're hoping gets assigned to your case? I feel like we almost should take Robbie off the table because it's such a complicated answer, but I'll let you decide.
Because, and I've been watching
and we're talking now. We're not talking last season Robbie, because last season Robbie, I feel like everyone would just say Robbie.
Yeah.
But
I don't
this
want
season
him
it's more
cutting my
complicated.
leg open.
Yes.
I think man, this bums me out because I have two that came right to mind right away. And they are Whitaker, of course, because he's, first of all, I trust a younger doctor because they're closer to, you know what I mean? Like, but then, my other first thought was McKay because she comes in, she does her job. There's not a lot of theatrics with her. I don't have to worry about her getting in a fight in like another room. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
she's so like, they were my first two thoughts, I think.
Yeah.
But the good news about the show is there's nobody where I'd be like, oh, fuck. Like, except maybe like Ogilvy, but he'd have somebody supervising. So that doesn't really help. Yeah. What about
I had two immediate answers in my head as well. That's why I asked. My first immediate thought was Mel. Mel is going to be very direct with me. She's going to turn the lights down if she notices that I'm upset. She's going to explain things to me very clearly in a way that I need to understand them. And if I tell her I cannot hear certain things because I will faint on you, she will put the bed down for me. So I lie down with my head below my feet and, not make me feel stupid. My second was McKay, though, because if there's one thing I love, it is a no-nonsense medical professional woman that clearly has been through some shit. Like, when I had shoulder surgery, my physical therapist was a woman named Terry from Vermont.
Perfect.
But who
that's all I need to know.
Who had played sports and who was just like clearly high school jock who had gone into PT, took no shit from me, basically said to me on day one, you're going to be trouble. And every time I would walk in and be like, so she'd be like, what the hell did you do? She was like a scolding big sister with a good heart.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's exactly what I want.
Yes.
So yeah. I wouldn't be upset if Whitaker walked in, but he wouldn't be my first choice. I feel like he and I wouldn't be able to connect on my specific issues because most of them have to do with chromosomes.
I was going to say it would really depend on what I was there for is the other thing.
Yeah. Well, and when I was thinking about this, I also thought about how much you and I have interacted with the medical system in like unusual ways.
Right.
Like having illnesses that are not directly solvable by like putting a cast on it or something. And so I think that part of my reaction to who I would want as a doctor is like who I think would like understand my specific medical history, but also take me seriously and like listen to everything I had to say, like as if it was a real person's experience and not some hysterics nonsense. So, yeah.
Yeah. But, I would love to know from our listeners as well.
Yeah. Which doctor would you want to be the one walking in the room?
There are a few. I wouldn't mind walking into the room. I just would feel safer in certain hands.
Right. Who would you want to be treated by in terms of like a good experience as a patient?
Right. Because like Ryan, who I love and is so beautiful to look at, sometimes I think that would be stressful for me. And also I'm on Robbie's side a little bit where it's like, I'd be like, I don't have time, Dr. Moen. I don't want to tell you my whole life story. Can you just...
She's better this season, but
and
I also think that they're not doing enough with that actor. Like she doesn't really have a storyline. We found out that her mom was from New Jersey. We got really excited, and then we've heard nothing since, other than she's calling her a lot.
Yeah, I hope that we'll get some time with her because I think she's great, and I'm so curious about her story now.
I wonder if it worries me about the phone calls because like typically when someone's ignoring phone calls a lot, it's like Chekhov's like voicemails, like what's actually happening.
That's the thing too about the Pitt. It really picks the things to be heavy handed about and in general tends not to in ways when it doesn't need to. So I'm hoping that that's just a funny thing of like culturally and regionally, that is a mom who's going to call a billion times.
A Jersey mom will not let you not answer the phone.
Exactly.
They will call you again and again.
So that's my hope for Moen's sake, but we'll see.
Yeah, me too. All right, it's time for rounds.
Let's go.
All right. So we're going to go through patients first and then our doctors who are also our patients.
That's right.
I think we should start with the minor ones that are either barely here. Last time we went in time order, but I think that like we should do the ones we either barely see or whatever, and then move on to the more important ones.
That sounds good to me.
So for example, Jackson will be important. We do not see him.
Right.
He is waking up, and we'll find out what that means soon, hopefully.
I'm glad you did bring him up, though, because he's mentioned in this episode, and that's what we're doing. But also because I meant to say when we were talking about them, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but Jackson and his sister, that she says something that I think is setting us up for something about their family, because she says, like, he always encourages me to chase my dreams, even if our parents would disown me over them. And it's like, that's one of those examples of the patients giving us way more information than we need.
Yeah.
And so I'm
something they would never say in the moment.
Yeah. And so it was quick and we didn't mention it. And I just want to make sure that we're paying attention to that when he wakes up and able to hear what their deal is.
Yeah. His parents are on their way from Columbus, it seems. Another person we don't really see is Harlow.
Yeah.
I do think that storyline isn't necessarily over because they haven't told us what's wrong with her yet.
Right. And it can't just be, I think we're pretty safe to know that's not her baby at this point.
Right.
I would be very surprised.
Yes, agreed.
Though I did like that potential, but I think we know that. And I would hate for it to just be deaf culture PSA. I want her to have more to do.
Right.
So.
Right. Like you said when we first started talking about her, like she's not in the emergency room because she's deaf. Like something's going on with her.
Right. So I'll be interested to see where that goes.
Yeah. I want to just really briefly shout out to Pamela Perry, she of the Chilaquiles, who is feeling better on Zofran and is going to go to the water park. Ma'am.
As Robbie said.
Cesspool. Yeah. So I did, because I am who I am, look up what water parks it could be. Yeah. So there's a couple in Pittsburgh. None with the reputation of Action Park for our Jersey friends. I got excited. So I was looking at, there are two that were the kind of bigger ones. There's one called Sandcastle or Sandcastles. Both of them have horrible reviews.
Perfect.
On Yelp, of course. And so there's Sandcastle, and then there's Idlewild and Splash Zone. Splash Zone is like part of the, it's like a great
Clementon
adventure. Yes, exactly. And so apparently recently Sandcastle got this like crazy ride or slide where like you're kind of in this tube. And I was like, oh, is it like the loop-de-loop? What the fuck was it called at Action Park? It's not. It's a normal, safe ride. So, yeah.
Pittsburgh.
But there were complaints about the teenage lifeguards in both, in reviews of both.
Oh, so, is Sandcastle part of Kennywood?
Kennywood, they actually just changed ownership this year. It was owned by one company, then Kennywood, now a third company.
I see. Got it.
Yeah. So apparently half the rides are always closed at this point.
Perfect.
Yeah. So no one else cares, but I, as someone who went to Action Park a bunch growing up, my ears perked up at the mention of a water park.
There's a certain kind of person, and I'm going to bet it's a lot of our listeners, if you've been sticking around this long, who actually local kind of shitty but important to the community water parks and amusement parks actually are important to know about.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so I'm like, I don't think this is going to happen because I don't think we have time for it, but it would be really funny if Pamela Perry, she of the Chilaquiles incident, comes back with like a water park incident. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pink eye's always my first thought because of the log flume at Clementon Park. Just
see, for me, I can literally feel that concrete wave pool floor, just ripping apart my knees or my legs or my elbows, like, or any of the rides with their concrete, pebbled, painted surfaces. Ugh. Everything was full of gravel when we were children. Horrible.
That's why kids today are so soft, you know?
So soft. So we'll see. Best of luck, Pamela. Stay out of the wave pool. That's where most people died. Who should we do next? Mr. Billings? He briefly shows up at the end, the dislocated shoulder who went on a tour of Allegheny County, whose friend brings him beer.
Is he just back so that just to help us kind of trace because it's like, well, they sent him there and everybody's being diverted, so he's going to come back, and just to kind of give us a little continuity. Like, I think his case we're pretty done with, right?
I think so. It's unless something crazy happens, it seems pretty straightforward. I think it was more of an illustration of like an extra tap on the nail of the insurance company is fucked.
Right.
Insurance companies are fucked. Like the fact that he had to go to one hospital, come back to this one unnecessarily, and just be in pain the whole time.
Right.
Which is, So we've got some. I almost said the word juicy. So TB lady. Ogilvy. Well, this leads us, I think, to talk a little bit about Santos.
Right.
Maybe we can do our little Santos moment here, because Santos is trying to chart. She's 20 charts behind. She's trying to dictate and cannot get one sentence out before either Dana gives her a new patient, which is her job.
Right.
Dana is doing what she should be doing, or Ogilvy interrupts her with something. And I think last week we were kind of wondering, like, what is going on with Santos? Is it just the Al-Hashimi's kind of writing her about her charting? And I think that actually her shift really did come when she saw Langdon. And this is just making it worse.
Makes sense. And she's having trouble focusing.
Yeah, well, and it shook her confidence, because literally the last thing Langdon said to her was, "You don't belong here."
That's true.
You know?
Yeah. I wonder I'm so curious about it, because she seems to be way more behind than everybody else, and I don't know enough about where she is.
Well, I think she's the only R2.
That's what I was going to say. Is that the issue, the major one?
I think so.
And then also that it's Santos, and I can imagine if I were her, I'd be the same way, that would be the thing I was least motivated to do while I was there. So
yeah. And honestly, like, I'm not going to always harp on the gender of it all, but like, if you've already had your confidence shaken as a young woman in a really competitive environment, and then that person comes back, and then the person that you're going to be working with for the next 3 months starts her day off by being like, "You don't want to repeat your year." Like,
true.
It's gonna shake you in a way that, like, if you don't have that built-in confidence of like always being taken seriously when you walk into a room, that's a good point just too. More, I think, for her. And
I think it's also setting us up for something with, I don't know if Santos is eventually going to give in and use.
I know.
Al-Hashmi talks about it as if she's directly invested in this app. Like, that she stands to make some money.
She's a stockholder in this company.
That's what it seems like.
I know. I wondered about that too. Like, are we going to see a mistake get into the record because she does get overwhelmed and start to use this app that makes a mistake? Yeah, that seems to be. If that's not where they're going, they're certainly planting some seeds in that direction.
Right. Yeah, agreed. But so because of that, Dana has done Santos a little bit of a solid in.
Yeah. She's supervising and charting at the same time.
Right.
She's not doing a great job of supervising. She's the crankiest person in the world this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the two patients that she and Ogilvy tackle together is this woman with a bad cough who is unhoused. We had talked early on about the way that Digby was portrayed as sort of helpless. I do appreciate that the two older women patients in this episode are not at all.
No.
Mrs. Yardley and then Poop Lady, Gridlock's granny, both of them are like very aware of what's happening.
I thought the same thing. The joke with Gridlock Granny is gross and it's low-hanging fruit and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not really about this old, like, woman, yeah.
No, it's literally, there was, when we get to her there, I thought that was actually more well done than I expected for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
But Mrs. Yardley is just not taking Ogilvy's nonsense.
I loved her.
Yeah.
So you have time
you
for
smoke?
us to do that?
Have you ever considered quitting? And he's literally not paying attention to her when he's saying this. He's looking out into the hallway. Mm-hmm. She says, you ever considered minding your own business?
Get him.
I love her.
Yeah. When he's like, do you have time for us to do that? To run the test. She's like, where the fuck else would I be?
Right. Yeah, no, I'm a fan. Unfortunately, she has TB.
Unfortunately,
and now
she
maybe
has
so does Ogilvy.
And I know that I'm an expert on tuberculosis because of John Green.
Everything is tuberculosis. Yeah.
I didn't have time to pull the actual stats up, but he mentions them all the time. So yeah, if you're curious about this, that book is incredible. And also he talks about tuberculosis everywhere. If you Google John Green and tuberculosis, and you'll get an overview, which is, first of all, 1 million people a year die from tuberculosis. Not in the States, and it is highly treatable. The issue is where funding goes and the kind of people that the people who could make that suffering less, who they think deserves to be cared for. So that's kind of the long and the short of it.
And it's why Santos is not phased at all.
Exactly.
Well, because 70% of medical students apparently will contract TB. They just take a course of they'll take a course of medication and be fine.
But even I wish I could find the stats off the top of my head. I'll put them in the show notes if I find them, because the percentage of people walking around not in the medical field who've been exposed to tuberculosis and that will show up on a TB test is much higher than you think. And it's just that our immune systems are, most of us are strong enough, and they just never, it never activates for most people.
Right.
But it is a way higher number than you think. It's like,
well, and so they say not only was he exposed, but obviously so was everyone in the waiting room when she was there.
Right.
Yeah. So he's going to have to get a blood work taken and test again in 8 weeks to see if he converts, and then meds every day for 3 or 4 months if he contracted it.
That's right.
Which is a pain in the ass, but because he is American in a hospital that, knows how to treat this and has the money to do so, he'll be generally fine, most likely.
Yeah. It's, according to the CDC, up to 13 million people in the United States live with an active TB.
Wow.
So and 1 in 10 of those people will get sick with active TB. So that's a lot higher, I think, than, I thought, at least until John Green started talking about it all the time. So
I also, Ogilvy is having a terrible, no good, very bad day now.
That's such a good point. He's the Whitaker of this day.
He is. He's getting all the bodily fluids. He's getting all the germs. But honestly, he pulled a piece of glass out of somebody's back and nearly killed them. So
it's so funny to think about these seasons a little more holistically, where it's so far, Ogilvy's first day, he pulled a giant piece of glass out of a man he shouldn't have and almost very nearly killed him. A guy who was doing pretty well, all things considered. Yeah. Then he
did his first intubation, though. That was a high point.
That's a really good point. And then he also gets exposed to tuberculosis and shit on.
Yeah, literally.
Whitaker, I don't know what you were complaining about your first day.
Right, exactly.
I would have changed my scrubs 1,000,000 times if it was just blood and pee and Pepto-Bismol or whatever.
Yeah, there's much grosser things happening.
So funny.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
So, I think TB Lady's probably going to be fine. They'll treat her. They'll treat Ogilvy. To me, the whole point of this section, we can talk about Poop Lady now, I think, just because it's the pair of the two of them. I think the whole point of this section is just to show, Ogilvy getting his confidence shaken, and then Santos, trying to manage too much and not doing a great job at any of it. But so Poop Lady, I have to say, like I just said before, I liked the fact that this was not some dementia-ridden elderly person who doesn't know what's going on. This is a woman who was tweaked her back in a ballroom dance competition at her assisted living. Right? Love that.
Do you think she knows Mr.
Oh, can we get a love connection between the two of them? Maybe he's still there. He hasn't been checked out yet.
Yeah. I mean, they clearly have hobbies in common.
Oh, that would be so fun.
I would love that.
And they both have butt stuff in common.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, I want to see a love connection. Okay, that's a future casting, like wish casting thing. Yes, the two of them. Okay, put a pin in that. But because I often see elderly people portrayed as dumb in these shows, or not aware of like proper care of their own bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, that's not, I mean, we both have elderly parents, like, or, you know, parents that need more care. And like, that's not always the case. No. Like, so this woman.
No, this is something that could have happened really to anybody.
And she knows why, and she knows what happened, and she did the right thing, and she went in. But basically, like, she's taking painkillers, which makes her constipated. She's tried the few things they've given her at the assisted living. They haven't worked. So now they've just got to, you know, manually get things moving.
And I love that she's not, there are two ways to play it, which is one where she's like so embarrassed and ashamed and this like sad little old woman who has to have this like, embarrassing thing happen, or where she's like you said, so kind of like unaware or whatever that it like, but she's not embarrassed. She's not excited about it either, but like, she's just like, this is what has to happen. I'm 80, 90 years old. Like,
and there's a practicalness that happens at that age where you're like, you know what? This is bodies. This is what's going to happen to you too.
That's exactly the feeling that I got from her. It's cool.
Yeah. I also liked that we got to see, so Whittaker gets dragged into this by Santos. And he is like, this is not my job. But I think because he's trying to placate Santos and figure out why she's upset.
We still don't totally know why is it because they're closer? And so, you know what I mean? Sometimes you're like, are a little harder on the people. I think he is one of those.
Yeah. And I think he's one of those people that when something is wrong, is like, did I do something?
Right.
Are we okay?
Too. He's getting into her space in a way nobody else is. So that's a really good point.
I can see him being one of those people that like immediately thinks they did something.
Right.
So yeah.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
But so he does he helps with the procedure, even though he doesn't have to, just to kind of do what she wants. But the reason I brought this up is because not only do we get a patient who is elderly, but not riddled with dementia or doesn't understand, but the way he talks to her, I really appreciated as someone who watches doctors interact with elderly people a lot. He's very direct with her. He's very respectful. He's not talking down to her. That's the big thing. Ogilvy is talking down to all these patients.
Yes. Yeah.
Whittaker is not. He's really not. Like, you know, he may be the sort of boy wonder favorite, but like he also is a good doctor and he's learned a lot and he has a really good way of talking to people like they can understand him.
Yeah. And he's not acting grossed out or shy about it, which like at this point in his career, like, he shouldn't be, you know, this isn't day one for him, but you could see them playing that part of it a little more like squeamishly. He's not thrilled about having to do this, but.
No, but yeah, it's part of like normal doctor life in the ER. Like
exactly.
My TikTok feed has started feeding me doctors reacting to episodes of The Pitt.
Same.
Which is great.
It's really
I love
fun.
it. Yeah, it's really fun because you get to see them, you know, either say what they would have done differently or before it actually comes up on the show, kind of predict what's happening next.
I love when it's somebody who is like so new to the show that they assume it's going to be like any other show and like they'll be like they're going to miss it, but it's blah blah blah, and then they get it and they get to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying those videos, but one of them recently that I watched about this episode was a doctor being like, yeah, that happens all the time, and she's like, somehow I escaped having to do that, but yeah. One of the things on the TV show alone that will get people sent home is that because they are eating mostly protein, because they're mostly hunting, and they'll often send them in an off season where there isn't a lot of plant life, they won't get any like roughage and they won't poop. And it literally, they will pull you if you haven't been able to poop for a while because it's dangerous. Yeah. So it is definitely a thing that can get out of hand. Let's say.
Speaking of bowel things that
get out of your hand.
That can get out of hand.
Sorry. I did not do that intentionally. It's horrible.
And it was there. If you're ever in Philadelphia, or if you're one of our listeners in Philadelphia and you are into medical stuff, stuff in general. Highly recommend checking out the Mutter Museum.
Yeah.
And their mega colon that they have for you to take a look at.
I haven't been because I'm fascinated.
You would faint. Everything would be you like 3 steps and a faint, 3 steps and a faint.
It's really hard to be fascinated by this stuff and also have your body just shut off every time you try to think about it. It's awful.
Yeah. It is strange that I'm not more squeamish about this kind of stuff. If everything else about me points to that I should be. But that place rules, and you can go see a colon the size of like you could crawl into it and use it like a sleeping bag if you wanted. If you wanted.
I don't want to.
Jody, if you wanted to, you could.
But I don't. Saying. Okay. I really don't.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, no. Fine. Thank you. I do like to camp, but no, thank you. I mean, you said sleeping bag. I have a sleeping bag. It's not made of colon.
No, in a pinch.
It's horrible. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Moving on.
I think our next least significant, but also delightfully funny are our goobers that are burning each other with dry ice. I need our Pittsburgh folks to tell me. I should look this up. Am I allowed to call them Yinzers?
Yeah, let us know.
Because I won't if I'm not. I'm from New Jersey. I've taken a lot of shit for being from New Jersey, so I do respect people from other beleaguered towns. So, I wouldn't call Andrea a piney.
A piney.
Right. You could call yourself that, but right.
That's the curious, because it's not, because piney is a good example, and I'll use it because I feel more comfortable weighing in on that.
Yeah.
Is that it's not a slur? Right.
Well, that's the same thing with Guido, right?
But it's not necessarily appropriate, and it depends on who's using it and why. And I have no idea if that's the case with Yinzer, or if it is just it's fine. Nobody that's not.
Yeah. I mean, from being from North Jersey, we called everyone Guidos. Mm-hmm. I'm not Italian, but I might as I'm Italian adjacent.
Right.
Yeah, everybody's a little bit Italian if they're from Jersey, and at the time in the 80s, that was not an insult. Well, it was kind of an insult, but it depended on who was saying it or how they were saying it.
And it wasn't that. It was an insult in the way that, the degrees of appropriateness. And I have no idea. It might be totally fine and we're overthinking it because we, again, grew up in a place where we had to have a big chip on our shoulder about how people talk about us.
Yes, exactly. So these young men from Pittsburgh, these Penguins fans from Pittsburgh.
This is so fucking funny. Again, as somebody who is from an area, and again living right outside of Philly, I'm sure I've gone on this rant about why the only team I care about are the Flyers, but why my team is a Philly team, and it doesn't feel like a Jersey betrayal because all of the Flyers live in New Jersey, they practice in New Jersey.
South
they're
Jersey
a Jersey
is just
team.
a Philly sports area.
It just is, and so I understand a place of being an irrational, what it's like to live in a city where the sports fans are dedicated in a very stupid but endearing way. And Pittsburgh, obviously. First time I was in Pittsburgh, I had the worst pizza of my life, of course, so that's number one. But the person who sold it to me, I walked in, I said, "Can I have olives on that?" Also, it was French bread pizza, and it was not advertised as such. I went in.
French bread pizza?
I ordered a slice of pizza from this place with, exactly. I said, "Can I get olives on it?" And this guy said, "I don't care what you do." And I was like, "Yeah, I love you, sir. I love you, but I'm just asking you to put olives on it because I can't." And he had the Pittsburgh Pirates tattoo on the front of his neck, their logo.
That's perfect.
He was amazing, and he gave me the worst piece of pizza of my life, and I had a great time. So,
yeah.
This is the world these kids are coming from.
No, absolutely. I did see someone on Reddit. I think it was in the Pittsburgh reference thread, which I love every time. Someone doubt that somebody would be such a big Penguins fan specifically that they would do that, and then they immediately contradicted themselves by saying, "Well, unless it was a Sidney Crosby tattoo."
Okay.
And I was like, "Wait a minute." So okay.
But yeah,
don't know about that.
I mean, it's the family crest, so maybe it goes way back to Crosby days, and in that case, it's just carried on generationally.
I also saw in this thread when they were talking about this being the most Pittsburgh, kind of referenced patients that we've had, that the brother that comes in who did the branding calls his brother a jack-off, not a jag-off, which is actually incorrect.
Yeah, totally.
It should be a jag-off.
Jag-off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
Oh, I also, in this same thread, someone said, I had a post a while back about how it's frustrating and confusing that they haven't had a Yinzer accent on the show yet, and have in fact had many Southern accents to this point. If they weren't going to go for it with the brothers branding each other with the Pens logo and calling it their family crest, they just aren't going to do it.
So I get that is, and we've talked at length about Jersey's accents, Philly.
Yeah.
It is difficult, and I think the Pittsburgh accent is in a similar kind of difficulty. And so I get that you don't want to bring people who don't, but there's got to be some Pittsburgh actors in LA, right? Like,
yeah,
there have to be a few, you know, like there's got to be a few people who can do it.
Yeah.
I just need a couple.
Someone else in this thread said, I'm from Pittsburgh, and in high school, my friend and her sister put salt on their skin and then iced it to create burns. So for me, the dry ice branding felt reminiscent of that.
This is my question to you, Jody. Is that not familiar to you?
No, it is not.
So this was my question. Is this Jersey dirtbag, or is this?
No, I think it's just dirtbag. Because
things to do to kill time in a 24-hour diner when you were a young person without a lot of money. One is, did you guys make in your mouth milkshakes at the diner?
No.
So that is ice cube, spoonful of sugar, creamer.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And so
I do know of this. Okay. I did not do it, but I am aware.
So that all goes in your mouth. You shake it up in your mouth. That's a free milkshake.
Sure.
The other one is mound of salt in your hand, ice cube, close your fingers around it, hold it as tight as you can for as long as you can.
We did do this.
That's exactly what they're talking about.
I know. I just had blocked it out.
That burns like shit.
I don't think I ever did it to the point where it hurt me. I think I saw other people doing it and I tried it and was like, why am I doing that?
Yeah, you're smarter than I am, and we've learned a lot about
pain.
Yeah, and it leaves that same kind of obviously to a lesser literal degree than dry ice would.
Right.
I consulted Daniel, our resident scientist, about this, and definitely not as difficult a burn, but it will leave one of those like puckery, nasty little burns on your palm for quite a while, depending on how tough you are, and I'm really tough.
Right, of course. Well, I mean, relatedly, like our pastime for being broke teenagers in, kind of a shithole neighborhood in New Jersey was lighting stuff on fire.
Yeah, we had that.
So the opposite, but
that's what I was
with
wondering.
Hairspray.
Is that like, we talk about these kind of delineations a lot, but like fire is a young New Jersey person pastime. I think
absolutely.
I think toe to tip on the state.
Yeah, 100%.
It seems like now you're saying that the ice and salt actually.
Yeah, no, I do remember that vaguely as a thing people did, and I think I tried it, but not like I can almost feel it in my hand, but I never burned myself with it. Yeah,
it would be funny for us. I'm 40.
I'm 50 now.
You're 50. It would be so funny if we did this on the podcast right now. We shouldn't.
I'm not doing it.
I know you. You won't, but it would be so fucking funny to be two old women doing this right now on the podcast. I really want to do it for the bit, but
yeah, no, as someone who I think even back then I had already experienced so much physical pain in my life from endometriosis that I was like, I'm doing nothing that causes me pain.
It's again, we're learning a lot about ourselves through this podcast, and it really is interesting to see how different people can react to, and also on the Pitt. Everybody endured the mass casualty event and everybody's dealing with it differently.
Yeah.
And we're learning that about ourselves as well.
Right.
And I think that's fascinating.
I also like that Perla just calls him stupid. Like,
I love her. We do not get enough.
Perla's the best.
Perla or Princess. But Perla especially. Every week she does a little thing that makes me love her more.
Also, speaking of Perla and Princess, I just want to make a correction for myself. Last week when we talked about the new hot radiologist, I defaulted with my patriarchal programming to calling that possible hot radiologist a him. But I don't know that Princess is straight, and I also don't know that the radiologist is a man. So who knows?
She calls that person a hottie, right?
Yeah. And so that could be a man or a woman.
I guess it could.
Or a non-binary person or trans person. There's lots of hotties in the world.
It's so funny.
Hotties come in all shapes and sizes. That is my philosophy.
Wow, that's a really good point. And I'm so glad you said it. Hottie in my head is something that is like a mom word.
Yes,
for
I understand that
a man.
for sure.
So I think that it's like, horses, not zebras, likely, but you're opening my eyes, and I'm listening and I'm learning, and
Hotties come in all shapes and sizes.
That's so true.
And genders.
That's a really good point.
I do really appreciate the fact that, like, because this episode has some really heavy storylines, as do most of them. The fact that Langdon and Donnie are both like, yes, show me the video right now, please.
It's so funny.
They're such bros.
Yeah.
Like, Langdon and Donnie are definitely on the bro side of masculinity, like in a sweet way and in a caring way, but like still wants to see the dumb video of the kid branding his brother. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah, it's really good.
He says, you want to see the video? And Langdon immediately says, yes, definitely. And they come in, and when the kid is branding his brother, he yells, "Brothers unite." We're going to be bonded for life. Yeah.
So funny.
You already are with DNA.
I couldn't remember.
I don't remember either.
I remembered. It's Practical Magic. The sisters are blood sisters in Practical Magic.
And they're actual sisters.
And that's why and the implication is that's why they're like more psychically connected. Mm-hmm. It's that's played really seriously in Practical Magic, and I'm so glad that we get to see
that Langdon calls it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny.
He also says to his brother, "You gooning me?"
What a good show, huh?
Perfect little moment. Mm-hmm. Your family crest is the Penguins logo? I mean,
really made me cackle. Really.
To be fair, if my father had his way, our family crest would have been the Mets logo.
Exactly.
So we are on to the big ones. Where should we start? I feel like we should end with Louis because the episode does.
I think we end with Louis. I'm like the least interested of these with the Diaz case because I think I'm just tired of talking about insurance.
Yeah, we can just kind of jump through that quickly because not a lot happens now other than Joy. This is our moment to talk about Joy, yes. I think. Because Joy, we actually get some backstory on. Mm-hmm. Her grandmother was quite ill, died of leukemia or complications from that disease, and didn't have health insurance. And so they had to learn to navigate all the ins and outs of the system.
That's right. And I also don't remember, is it this episode or last week where she says it's this week. She says, like, it made me realize I don't want to be around dying people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she's only on her ER rotation, right? She's a student, so she has to do this. I saw some people speculating about what they think her specialty, like current med student speculating about what her specialty might be. And a lot of people clocked her as a possible ophthalmologist.
Oh, so I love that. I love the idea of her being like, what's the least?
Yeah. People that die the least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the ophthalmology angle because I felt like it is one where most of the time people aren't going to die. She doesn't seem squeamish. She just doesn't want to be around death.
And it makes me feel better about how detached she's been this whole time, because if I wanted to be an ophthalmologist and now I'm hanging out watching Clamshell,
right?
Like, I also would be staring at my phone most of the time, I think.
Right. None of these are things she's going to necessarily have to deal with once she is out of the ER. So, but I do think, so we mentioned this last week, we don't need to belabor it, but just the fact that, like, there is this middle ground where you make too much money to qualify for social services, but not enough to actually pay for anything. And they're reiterating that by getting into some of the details here. I do think last week they kind of just glossed over it a little bit and were like, she should be on the ACA marketplace without actually talking about what that would mean.
Right.
So they got into some numbers.
And we got Noelle being very kind and patient in a way that they're not always. You and I talked about this off mic. I wish I were there, because I'd be like, hey, just don't fucking pay it and don't worry about it.
What number of years my mom was paying $5 a month to various hospitals, they can't do anything if you're paying them something.
Anything. What are they going to do? That's what I want one of the younger doctors to come in and just kind of say when Noelle isn't looking. Just being like, don't fucking worry about it.
Because that's the thing. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I have certainly navigated Medicare, Medicaid, charity care in hospitals. Like, when I was in AmeriCorps making no money and had no savings, I needed medical care and went to a Catholic hospital that gave me charity care to wipe the bill. Like, you know, there are ways to navigate the system. They all suck and they all require lots of legwork and time and knowledge and someone to lead you through them.
Yeah, that's kind of the bigger issue. I mean, there are a lot of issues, but that is often the thing that gets in the way of people getting help it often feels intentionally difficult.
Yeah. It is intentionally difficult. I mean, like nowadays, especially when my mom needed to be in a rehab facility, they kept trying to kick her out. They would do their like, okay, it's been this many days. We're going to evaluate, but their evaluation would be an AI that I would then have to appeal and have an actual, just to have a doctor look at it. I would have to file an appeal.
Which takes it was time.
Automatic denial. Yep.
It happened now this is just a venting session.
Yeah.
But when my mom went on permanent disability, she was denied the first time, of course. Eventually was able to get a lawyer to help. And the lawyer said, if you have any passing familiarity with any of this, this is not news. Everybody gets denied the first time. And the hope is that people just won't apply again.
Yeah. They won't have time.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And if you don't have, like, if you're working multiple jobs, like the only reason I was able to even do any of that was because I have I don't make a ton of money, but I have a pretty cushy schedule and happen to be off at that point. And so and it's also like not even just the amount of time, but it is so bad for your mental health to be that stressed about money and feel so out of control
and have it tied up with health.
Care of the care of your loved ones. Yeah, it's rough. But Joy speaks up, which that's what I like about Joy, actually. Like, she doesn't seem to be too engaged necessarily all the time, but she has no qualms about saying something just to see if it will help, you know, in that situation. She's not cowering or anything. I liked that for her. I liked her to get a win.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice that if she's not invested in impressing these people because she's leaving when the rotation's up, she can be a little pushier and a little less careful, and that's cool to see.
Yeah, she's not trying to get like matched in that department or something. Yeah, you know, so she's not hyper competitive, like shouting stats at people like Ogilvy,
exactly,
or Javadi, to be honest.
Right. Yeah,
I think the next one we should talk about is Gus Varney, the prisoner that they bring in.
What is going on here?
So, I really don't like the guard. He's totally in the way at all times. I do think that there's a possibility that this is going to be, there's two ways this could go, right? This, like the worst, not worst, but like one possibility is the guard is responsible or the guard let it happen, right? And so that's why he's being so callous. The other possibility is this person did something horrific and the doctors are still going to have some, like, keep that empathy for the patient that they're treating.
That's the most interesting.
Yeah, I think so too.
The thing it feels like, and conversations I saw online feel like people think they might be setting up for, it's like the thing that people keep focusing in on is you see him moving his fingers a lot, and the fact that they're making reference over and over again to how annoying it is to have to cuff and uncuff him, and the guard or transport. I'm not totally. It was hard to say of like how involved, because I think this guy said he just moves them, right? So he wasn't there, but
he says he wasn't there,
right? Who knows?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't like this, and I think this show is better than this. That this guy is going to like end up being a threat to. And I don't think that's where it's going. I think that is maybe what it's hinting at for us to be worried about. Maybe it's definitely what some people are thinking. This is another one of those areas where I tend to lean overcorrecting, where I'm like, because he says like orange jumpsuit, he's in it for a reason. He's got the cuffs, and I'm like, yeah, he's in an orange jumpsuit because he's in prison. They don't color code by threat level in their jumpsuits. I don't think.
And to be clear, the guard his exact quote is, "I just moved them. I don't get to know them." So that's a little bit different than like, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
The thing I wonder about where they're going with, in terms of the patient's threat level, is that he is also malnourished. That is a very weak, skinny looking man with very thin skin. And that to me speaks to like larger abuses, like and systemic abuses.
Right. It could be this hospital. It could be the thing I think would be the most interesting is what you just said. And it would be difficult to wrestle with, but cool to watch, that you find out he's malnourished, because we all know that like you often hear stories about the more heinous crimes that people commit, other prisoners will sort of deal with that in different ways. And I could imagine withholding food and stuff being the first line, and then an attack like this. And then, like you said, imagine Santos finding out that this guy did something unspeakable, and then still has to treat, like, that is complicated and interesting and nuanced in a way that I would be curious to trace.
Yeah. This group of scenes also gives us part of what I was referring to when I said that Dr. Al-Hashimi is doing more teaching, because she is asking questions of Mel as they go through this in the way that Robbie normally does. And
That's true.
She says, Dr. King, how are the chest and belly? She reports. She says, when do pulmonary contusions peak? Then Mel answers, and do we always admit for 3 rib fractures? Mel answers. And then, and so she's kind of doing the thing where instead of leading the group, she is like questioning them so that they can be the ones leading and only correcting when needed.
That's true. The thing that somebody online pointed out that I hadn't really tracked because I wasn't watching her for this, though, is that she has, I don't know if it's just a matter of I don't know. Is that like Robbie is in there with the patients when there is a student or somebody who's still learning, he's hands off, but he is treating patients and seeing them directly. And Dr. Al-Hashimi has not done that once, I don't think.
Right. And I'm wondering if that's just because she's trying not to overstep and she doesn't actually, like, she's in a day early, basically.
That's so funny because when you say that, because it's like, she doesn't mind overstepping in a lot of ways, but that would be the place where it would be the most annoying for her to overstep, would be in direct.
Yeah. And it would also be the most sort of legally binding.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the thing, too. You mentioned that our first hour with her is like, is she really concerned with keeping her hands clean, like quite literally? And so maybe that's part of it, too.
I'm starting to come around on her, though. I knew I would. Like, I noted in this scene, too, that like when they're triaging his care and figuring out what to do first, and they realize he's in a ton of pain, Whitaker starts to dictate the next bit of care, like we should do a nerve block. And then he like respectfully literally turns and says, as long as that's okay with Dr. Al-Hashimi. And she like notes that. And then she says something as they are leaving this scene that Whitaker noticed and kind of was like, like that she's funny. She says, have they even come down to examine him in person? And I think it's Mel says, no, they must be backed up. And she says, oh, or there's a 4th of July sale at the BMW dealership. And we get a quick cut to Whitaker's face being like, oh, she's funny.
Yeah, she's had a couple because she had the good one when we found out about Westbridge shutting down. She had a joke there. She's not all one thing. Right. None of them are all one thing. And it's...
Yeah. And I noted that she compliments the young doctors on their work a lot. Like when she has to lead them to dealing with the patient's thinner skin, like, you know, putting the steri strips down and stuff. She does then, when they successfully do it, I think she compliments like Whitaker on the work or something. Like, she says, nice job on the sub-Qs, really took the tension off the wound. So they're kind of like... They're starting to get to know each other a little bit, and I think that she's gaining some respect from the younger doctors.
Yeah, and even she and Robbie are starting to soften on each other. And like we talked about last week, it's part of that because she's being a little more gentle with him and sees that that's what he's responding to or what. We don't really know, but they have that in this scene, with this patient, the best moment of the whole episode when she gives that suggestion of the steri strips, you know, further away from the wound, and she senses Robbie behind her.
That was so funny. I was like, she knows he's there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he says, great, a MacGyver move, go for it. And then our beautiful, young, perfect doctors.
Whitaker, little angel.
MacGyver move, go for it.
Does Dr. MacGyver work here? I don't know.
It's perfect.
It's really funny.
It made me laugh so hard. I don't know.
The thing that was weird to me about this whole mashup of people, though, is there is a moment where, like, Mohan's phone keeps going off. She says, it's my mom, just ignore it. And then you hear Amen, sister. And I don't know who that came from, but it felt like it came from the patient.
Funny.
It was a male voice that just said, "Amen, sister." It's just kind of random. And then they start talking about their problems, and they're talking, like, Whitaker's talking about how Langdon, like, he inadvertently insulted him, which we'll get to when we talk about Louis, I think.
But it had not occurred to me until this episode, and I haven't really been tracing it. I don't think you can speak that freely in front of patients about,
I know,
and then
there's a lot. I mean, we've talked in the past about how the doctors are just shouting diagnoses out at the top of their lungs, like, where everyone can hear them. HIPAA is, and also just like, I don't know about how much personal life doctors and nurses are going to be talking about in front of patients.
Especially with Langdon, I know we know that Robbie really pulled some strings and very likely did not tell anybody that he was actively stealing meds. Just that they know he was in rehab for a drug problem, because that is a huge deal. And so I know all of that on the one hand is true, but also Langdon is free with the info. It's so, I know some of this is it's a TV show and we have to hear this stuff, so fine.
But like Langdon's first episode, he literally like confesses to Louis that he stole his meds. Like,
He's working those 12 steps with everybody, whether they're part of it or not. Like when he says to Ahmad, when they're going over the betting pool again or whatever, and he's like, still catching up on rehab bills. It's like,
I liked that moment because Ahmad was like, respect.
Yeah. But it's like, Langdon, you know what though? Yeah. We all know those people. And God bless them who are in recovery and really love talking about it.
Especially in the beginning. I feel like if you don't focus on it that much, it doesn't happen. Like, I feel like it has to become a big part of your life in the beginning in a way that may seem overkill to the people around you, may seem cult-like to the people around you, but is the way that it actually works in the experience of people that I know. So we'll see what happens with Gus, the prisoner. There's lots of options for that storyline.
Great name.
Gus Varney. Yeah, it is a good name. People noted that there isn't a prison near central Pittsburgh, and that so what that means is that this is an unusual thing for them to have a handcuffed patient in the ER. So maybe that's partly why, especially the younger doctors, are not sure what to do with it.
There's got to be a county jail, though, right?
Yeah, but like, I think that, I don't know. The people that were the Pittsburgh folks, who I trust implicitly, were saying that if it was modeled on like Allegheny General or a hospital right down in the middle of Pittsburgh, that they wouldn't get a lot of those patients.
Okay.
Because there's other hospitals closer to those facilities. Like there isn't one that's like super close to where this should be.
I know now I'm Google Mapsing Allegheny County Jail to the hospital in Jersey anyway. I think orange is county. And then when you see people in the like khaki jumpsuits, those are prison. And
that's true.
But if he was but county jails aren't long-term stays typically. And so for him to have been malnourished and
it felt like it was a prison thing, but yeah, you're right.
So I don't know,
so I think we should talk about Roxy and then end with Foot Lady and then Louis. Roxy is a new patient for us. This was hard. I think but it is an aspect that we haven't seen a lot of on these shows, which is like the slow process of death from cancer when it is at the point where it's not going to turn around. I love that they had a death doula in there. I love that like people who didn't know that was a thing now know that that's a thing, because like we're talking about how navigating the resources of the healthcare system is a fucking nightmare, and it is way too much for a family member to deal with when someone is dying. And to have someone, like when Lena said, when he said, how do we get all that stuff? And she said, you don't, I do.
Right.
I almost cried because I've had moments where like people in those types of roles have just done the thing that I don't have the mental energy to do. Man.
Yeah, I didn't realize this is, I don't know. I just didn't, it became pretty clear again, following conversations online, that death doulas are way less talked about than I realized.
I have a friend who was going to study to be one. So that's, I think, how it came into my life.
Yeah, I've known a couple of people. I posted on our Instagram. A clip from and a link to a conversation that Gethard had on Beautiful Anonymous last year in April of 2025 with a death doula in training.
Yes.
There's also, I didn't post this, but if you are interested in like death doulas, hospice nurses are obviously very like different, but if you're interested in this like area of work, there's also a really good conversation with she's just really started to get pretty popular. Hospice nurse Julie is her name. And she did an episode of Problem Solved with Therapy Jeff that's really good. There's also an incredible woman. Her name is Alua Arthur, and she wrote a book called Briefly Perfectly Human, Making an Authentic Life by Getting Real About the End, that came out in 2024. It is incredible. So if this is something you're interested in, I'll link to all of those because it isn't talked about enough. It should be. I have a ton of death anxiety. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on mic. And specifically listening to like death doulas and hospice nurses talk about this stuff is the one thing that has been at least a little bit helpful for me.
Me too. And also Mark Maron's bit about when he fainted listening to Taylor Swift and how he was no longer afraid of death because he realized it was just going to be nothing. But yes, not to make light of a very serious conversation. I agree though that like the more you interact with people who deal with this in a sort of matter-of-fact way on a daily basis, but with so much empathy and compassion, it really does. It also makes you just feel better about humanity to talk to these people.
Yeah. And I love that it's Lena, that it's our friend.
I know. Yeah. Because, God, who would be better at navigating all that nonsense than a nurse? Like, you know?
Yeah, because that's the other thing is the death doula that Gethard talked to is not a medical professional. They're trained. You can be a death doula. You don't have to be a nurse. Exactly, and not a medical professional. But you can see, especially because like Lena's able to ask questions about medication. Like she's just...
God, I've so related to the husband when they asked, like, what pain meds are you on? And he just casually listed, like, a bunch of meds and dosages and, like, options for different times. And they were like, oh, you've been doing this a minute.
Yeah. Have you seen the conversations online about what different people are speculating about this whole thing? What's going on here? So some people, this is not my feeling, and I don't imagine it'll be yours. And I think part of this is the not understanding the role of a death doula, maybe. People being suspicious of him, and also maybe not having to help care for people with like complex medical issues. Suspecting that the husband and or Lena, who I think a lot of people also didn't realize that was Lena, are doing something nefarious.
This is not that show.
First of all, this is not that show. Second of all, I think what they're clicking into again is, like I said, just maybe not having experience with this kind of stuff, which is fine.
To anyone who has gone through something like this, I immediately recognized the sort of exhausted hovering the husband was doing, trying to fix every single problem before it even came up. And also Lena and McKay's immediate clocking of that and kind of removing him from the situation, both for his sake and for his wife's sake, so she could have a moment where she's not being hovered over.
And not because they're worried that he's abusing her.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They had a really sweet moment where, like, he kind of leans over and touches her face and she mouths, "I love you." Like, it really felt like he's just exhausted, and so is she.
And then the other one, which I think is more interesting and more possible, is that what actually happened is they were trying to do an at-home, like assisted suicide that didn't go.
Yeah, but she hit her leg, like,
but had a seizure, right? And so they say, like, I think it's more straightforward because I think this one is way more about, like, again, death doulas, end of life care, dealing with a young person dying from something slow, that part of it. I don't think there's enough needs to,
there's enough meat there
for
them to, there's enough of the under talked about experience of long-term end of life care.
I think so too. Again, especially for the kind of show, like you said, that this is.
Yeah. No, I don't really buy that, but I get that that's a way you could look at it, especially if you're used to watching shows that are more dramatic, intentionally, like, spicy and whatever. But I don't think that's what's happening. But also, like, there were two other things I clocked in this set of scenes. One is the slow decline that happens when you can no longer even get up to go to the bathroom on your own, and how as a young person that's like devastating. Mm-hmm. But then also, this was a real example for me. We talked about Javadi's lack of experience and youth kind of popping up a lot this season. She was so wide-eyed and kind of dumb in this moment, like almost dumber than I thought she should have been. But basically, like, A, not knowing what a death doula is, that's fine, but you do work in an ER. Yeah. And then when the husband is explaining all the things they've tried, her being like, did you try radiation? Ma'am.
I did the same thing. I was like,
come on.
I said it this week. I say it a lot. I also say that exact thing that we say it a lot, but she's the youngest, newest person there. And maybe they thought viewers needed to have that asked, but it just felt, it
felt stupid.
I thought the same thing.
And maybe it was just the fact that, like, maybe the line reading was a little bit off, because you could ask that question just as part of a medical history.
Right.
But it really sounded like she was like, did you try this one? Like, have you tried yoga? Is that comp for me?
Exactly.
It's like, you have chronic fatigue. Have you tried yoga?
Yeah.
Have you tried eliminating gluten from your diet?
Right. Yeah,
Fuck off.
exactly.
Not that that's not always not that that can't be a thing, but anyone who's had a chronic illness has had the same fucking responses. So yeah, I think that we're going to be sticking around with these folks for a while, not necessarily for anything dramatic, but just so that they can explore this area a little more.
Yeah.
So sorry, Roxy. I think that in a little bit of a Grey's Anatomy way, I do think Roxy is a comp for McKay. And McKay has been we haven't heard that much about what's been going on with her since her ex-husband seems to no longer kind of be a problem.
Right.
Like, she's got the ankle monitor off. But I could see this being a case that's difficult for McKay, because she also has a young son. And, maybe she uses it as a moment to, like, think about what she really wants. And maybe what she wants is a hot Brian and a date at an art gallery.
Uh-huh. Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. I don't know how much I can even discuss Foot Lady, to be honest with you. I mean, most of what's happening here for me that's interesting is Robbie really no longer can avoid Langdon, and now is just kind of being shitty to him.
Yeah, really trying to blame him for this in a way that he wouldn't have for anybody else.
Right. And to be clear, like, what Langdon did is standard what anyone would have done. You start with this thing, and then if it goes outside that line, you do the next thing, right? But he is really he's being petulant.
Yeah, and he is so obviously, triggered by Langdon.
Yes.
Like, the way he deals with Roxy is obviously unhinged. And not even just what he does, but the way he does it. Because I could imagine a Robbie last season who, when he's waiting for surgery to get down there and waiting for imaging, get frustrated, think about it, and decide that what he's going to do is open up this wound and see what's going on. But the way it is so fast and if I were that patient, rash, exactly. I would be terrified of him if I were that patient.
And I thought about that a lot, like, because I think at that point she's unconscious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true.
But the whole time, like, most of the time when the sort of panic of a code or something near a code is happening, the patient isn't aware of it. In this case, this patient is asking a ton of questions because everyone around her is losing it. And she's just like, can you please tell me what's happening? Am I going to die? Like, what the fuck? And Robbie normally, when he is his best self, would be very gentle with her and kind of lead her through this process in a way that is, relies on his years and years of dealing with patients. Instead, they're basically ignoring her. He will pause and, like, give her information here and there, but it's like, it's not good patient care.
No.
So
it is tough to see him let that bleed into how he's dealing with his patients.
Yeah. Yeah. He's grilling Langdon right there while she's watching, and it's just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, no one's telling me anything.
Right.
And I do think that I mean, you can't like alarm your patient either, but they're kind of so focused on each other that they're not really modulating how they talk to her about it. You know?
Yeah, it's for both of them is not their best.
Not good. With the one exception of Robbie threatening her boss.
Which also, listen, everybody at this point, it's difficult for me to admit when Robbie is that. I loved it. I loved it so much. All I wanted, but also, I don't know how I would feel if a doctor I didn't know
grabbed the phone.
Yes, that's what it is. He didn't say like, do you want, like, she says, do you want to talk to them? She's clearly doesn't mean that seriously, but Robbie, and again, I love that he did it, but it is also something that I think is,
he's moving quickly and he's not thinking about how he's affecting everyone around him at all.
It's another example of like, I could see him doing that last season. It would have been a little more measured and a little more careful.
Yeah. It is. I think this patient is also another way for the show to sort of nod at, the ills of society and the fact that this is a waitress who's on her feet all day and she is going to lose her job and probably doesn't have health insurance through that waitress job where she gets, lives on tips.
That's right.
So, but yeah, I actually put in my notes, they aren't doing a very good job of keeping her calm.
Yeah.
And it gets super gross, and I don't want to know any more about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. I don't ever want to see it again, because it's horrifying. But he does that partly because Garcia is caught up in the OR, and they send down someone who has like never seen a leg before. He's like, what is this? How does it work?
Oh, he was in med school 2 weeks ago. So
he was in the womb 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Robbie,
that man does not understand how limbs work.
Yeah, he's
taking pictures of it.
He's
going to send Garcia, look, a leg. What do I do with it?
What do I do with this? He's
Jesus Christ.
Really green.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, we talked about how Robbie is like really being rough with everyone. He does the same thing with this resident. This resident, he basically says, like, I just need a fucking grown-up down here.
Don't take it personally. I just need a fucking adult.
I mean, Garcia, like, we've seen this antagonism between the two of them for a while now, but usually there's like a little edgy jokingness to it. This scene at the end of the story of this patient, or the end of this chapter anyway, she's pissed. Garcia is like, for fuck's sake, Rabinovich, what the fuck are you doing? And as she leaves the room, she says, when do you start your sabbatical? And he says, tomorrow. And she says, not a moment too soon. Like, she's mad at him. It's not just like, oh, this person's like this all the time. It's like, you are being a fucking asshole and making everything worse.
Not a great moment for him.
No. And to be fair, like, from what I saw from the internet doctors, like, waiting for a CT scan would have been a bad idea. It was moving way too quickly, but that is not how you make the next bit happen.
Right. That's exactly, like, that is the impression I've gotten. It's not that, like, Robbie hasn't suddenly become a bad doctor. He's just, his impulse control and his decision making is not at its best right now.
Yeah, exactly. I try to avoid any spoilers. I do watch the previews for the week ahead, but I was watching a video about like a behind the scenes video, and sometimes they put clips in there that are from later in the season, and it makes me really mad. But one thing, this isn't a spoiler at all, I would never say it, but basically there was a clip where they said, like, somebody was saying to Robbie, what's it going to take for you to get some of your empathy back? And so I feel like this spiral that we're watching happen is being noticed by everyone else, because he's just kind of like snapping at everyone. And,
even when, like, Dana, when he tells, I mean, it made me laugh, but when he's like, I think somebody needs to smoke a cigarette. She's like, I'm trying to quit. And he's like, how about you quit when I'm on my trip?
Right.
Even that. I mean, that's a little more playful because the two of them can be, but.
Yeah. I think that, so before we talk Louis, maybe we can end with him. Since we're talking about Robbie right now, I do think it's quite interesting that Al-Hashimi has that conversation with Langdon where he says, like, doesn't seem like Robbie's all that happy I'm back. And she says, well, he's not going to be here and I am happy you're back. And he also is watching when Al-Hashimi and Robbie have the conversation about how he's treating her like a resident. He's in the background prominently. And so
it is really fun to watch what's going on in the background with everybody.
Yeah,
everybody's
totally.
always doing something. But yeah.
But I think it's interesting that, you know, like Al-Hashimi is not stupid. And she does know that Robbie theoretically is going to be gone the next shift. And Langdon is a good doctor, and she needs him to have some confidence in his abilities, because he needs to be doing a good job while he's working with her.
Totally.
So, but let's talk about the confrontation between Robbie and Al-Hashimi, because that was super interesting to me. He's basically like getting an update from her, like, she's a resident. Tell me what's going on, and then I'll walk away.
And she calls him on it. My turn.
I was really glad that she did that.
For her.
Because, I mean, who hasn't? It was such a classic moment of like, can you stand up for yourself in that moment and call out what's happening in that second? Or are you going to go walk away and then stew over it and try to figure out if you should bring it up another time, or if you should wait till it happens again, or, you know.
But she just calls it out right there. And he can't even, he just says touche. He knows she's right.
He's defensive at first, though. It takes him a minute.
Yeah. But he knows she's right.
I really appreciated that moment because for I mean, whatever, I don't care about making it gendered. It is gendered. For so many women in these types of jobs, like, if she's doing what I think she might be doing, which is like modulating the way that she talks to him so that she can get the best day that she can out of him, that confrontation, it can go a number of ways, or it can not happen. She says it so calmly and directly. It's not in an angry way. No. You know, she handles it really well.
Yeah. She just kind of like serves it back to him. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm also an attending here. So.
Right. So now you update me.
Yep. Yeah. It's really smart.
Yeah. She says, as your fellow attending in RED, it only makes sense for me to know the status of all the patients and all the doctors in case I need to jump in at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And like, he recognizes that she's correct, but he's not happy about it.
No. The other thing we get with him is Noelle, when she says she's like down here to convince him not to start another betting pool about how long Robbie's.
Yeah. And she tells Dana that Robbie sleeps with the TV on. Dana's like, woman, you just got here.
Yeah.
Like, she probably didn't just get here, but she just got involved with Robbie. And Dana's like, I've known this man a long time. I do not need to know that he sleeps with the TV on.
Exactly.
Yeah, she's a little inappropriate.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's just airing everybody's business on this show, though.
I know. She does call it a midlife crisis trip, which is not incorrect.
Nope.
Yeah, the other thing that I want to put a pin in with Al-Hashimi is that, so we talked about her like love of AI and where it might come in with this charting thing. But as they're having this conversation, Santos and I've been calling her Dr. Al in my head, but basically they're having this conversation. Robbie is nearby and he says his piece about AI, about how it's like it's going to eliminate his job basically, or whatever. And I don't think she knows anything about him or his family. So I don't think it was intentionally cutting. But basically she says, oh, Dr. Robbie, I'm not an advocate for erasing my own profession, but I'm advocating for getting to spend more time with my son. Nothing can replace family. Robbie doesn't have a family as far as we know. Like, the woman that he had dated, had apparently maybe gotten pregnant, and that was, Dr. Collins is gone. He was with this other woman, with Jake, who was like his kind of stepson. Last we saw of Jake, he was blaming Robbie for the death of his girlfriend. Who does Robbie have? And so this was a moment where I was like, I don't think she realizes that she's saying something that is so cutting to him, but it really was, because it was like, well, what does he have to go home to? Right.
Well, and also from the practical side of things, okay, maybe you're not advocating for that, but it is a result. And so that was like the least sympathetic I had felt to her actually this whole time. And not just because, like you said, it's kind of, even though she doesn't know, but it's a kind of shitty thing to say to Robbie. But then also because well, I'm sorry that's not what you're advocating for, but that is what's going to happen. So, like, right. I don't know what to tell you. Robbie's right in that instance.
Yeah, but I also think that it goes back to what we said in the beginning about how no one is right all the time, because she is right that sharding is just, like, taking up way too much of everyone's time. It just may be that this is not the right answer for that.
Exactly. But I don't like that she's like, so I don't care what the right answer is. I'm finding one that works for me. And like that feels selfish.
Absolutely. All right. We got to do it.
I don't want to do it.
I know.
So, although I'm starting to get a tiny glimmer of hope with Louis. Tiny. So small.
With Louis' health or with Louis' role in the show?
No, neither.
Okay. Explain.
Louis not doing well. We know that.
Yes.
Louis, even if he made major life changes.
Right.
Louis not bouncing back. I don't know at this point, though, that I'm certain we're going to lose him this season.
Really?
Because there are two ways to play this out. Both get us where we need to with Langdon and Robbie, and one is less problematic. Because what I don't want is for sweet Louis to be a lesson where they lose him and that's what bonds them. What could happen is they save him in this moment and that's what bonds them. That it's like, we've worked side by side with this before. Like, we're obviously have something. Robbie last season had just written Langdon a letter of recommendation. This is a really good way to
they're side by side in that last scene.
So what a metaphor. And so if Louis dies in this moment, again, it could be like, oh, well, we've got to come together. Look what, blah, blah, blah. But I think the more powerful way to do it is actually the two of them working together saves him. And this show isn't so sugarcoating that, I think it ends with Louis being like, and here I go to rehab, just like you, Langdon. That, we know he's not long for this world, but they don't have to kill him in this moment, is my hope. It's a small one, but especially because the show often points at something that could be a little more sensational and then just doesn't follow that through. And so letting Louis live to see one more day would be a good compromise for me.
I hope you're right. I don't have a lot of faith in that.
It's small.
Only because, I agree, I don't want Louis to just be a lesson for them. I think that if Louis does die in this next episode or two, what I said last episode about us finding out something about Louis' life, where we get a fuller picture of him as a person, where he's not just a device. He's already more of a person than most patients. He's beloved, but we don't know a ton about his personal life. We just found out he likes grass.
That's a good point.
So I do think that there is a way where he is a lesson, but he's also more of a person, where we get more information about him after he dies.
Right.
More like he didn't pass, but the ambulance pioneer patient.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. I don't want that to be the case. I don't want Louis to die, but I do think that it is likely, given all of the very not so subtle signs we've been seeing.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. But
as I said, it's a slim glimmer, but it is there in a way that it wasn't until the last 30 seconds of this episode for me.
Right.
So who knows?
Yeah.
It's also, he's dealing with a very serious, they haven't called it what it is yet, but me, and every medical professional, if you and I clocked it, it's a very serious thing that he's very likely dealing with that abscess in his heart. And so it would take kind of a miracle, I think, at this point, but you never know.
I will say that, as much as I agree, I don't want him to be just a device, I don't think they'll let that happen. And I do think that it is something of a device when Robbie is being so callous in general, to have a patient that everyone cares about, including him, pass, can send him in one of two directions. Because previous to this, he and Dana are talking, they're checking in on patients at the station, and they're checking in on the food poisoning lady. She's going to a water park, and the clamshell case went upstairs, and blah, blah, blah. And he says, Dana says, Louis in South 15 meds are coming down, another couple of hours of monitoring, and he can broom. And Robbie says, straight to the liquor store. And she says, don't pass go. And that is the way, that's gallows humor, right? That is the way that people cope. But if that patient then passes away 10 minutes later, like, that's a shitty thing to have said about them, even if you are going to bring them a beer.
Which, that's another thing. I saw a lot of people kind of outraged by that. Apparently, I'm saying this as if I totally know this for sure, but apparently it is not super uncommon for when people are alcoholics, especially this late in the game, where like withholding alcohol would be really
make it
harmful.
Worse. Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of hospitals where you can order a beer with your meal.
Right.
And so it's not as outlandish as.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just wanted to note that.
We also do have to briefly mention that Donnie doubles down on the idea of a sinkhole being the reason that Westbridge is shut down.
As soon as he said sinkhole, I don't know why. Ahmad, you live in Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh has had its fair share of sinkholes.
Yeah.
It is not that. I mean, it's,
It's a pretty big leap.
But it's not the biggest leap.
No.
I know. Brain Candy, a podcast I used to work on, Susie, who grew up in Pittsburgh. If I can find the episode, I'll link to it because it's so fucking funny. The tanning salon that she used to visit weekly, she's from like MTV, reality TV. And so what I'm about to say is her weekly tanning salon visit in her parking spot, not when she was there, but a sinkhole opened up underneath it. Like, as soon as Donnie said sinkhole, I didn't know how, not common like every other day, but more common in Pittsburgh than here, for example. I was like, my first thought was Susie, Pittsburgh. And so I looked it up and I was like, oh, are sinkholes just a thing in Pittsburgh? And like,
they're a thing in cities with shitty infrastructure,
right.
And Pittsburgh has shitty infrastructure, and where I currently live also has shitty infrastructure. It is, it has to do with like whether or not you've maintained the stuff under your streets.
And so it's not impossible. And I also wonder, like, it is weird that he came up out of nowhere for it. And I'm like, Donnie get a tip off? Because that's cheating, Donnie. And I don't respect that.
Right.
But.
Well, Ahmad said that he's watching too many movies. So maybe that's why. But yeah, sinkhole.
Hilarious for a show called The Pitt, though. If it is a pit who knows?
Not a bad point.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we leave it. They're trying to save Louis. One of the TikTok doctors I watched was like, they took way too long for those compressions. They should have started immediately. So that could, I also think that like they probably, one of the things they seemed to hint at was that he keeps taking off his pulse ox monitor. And so there's a chance they didn't get in there right away either because they're so used to hearing his alarm go off.
Right.
So that's also not great. Not great. So anyway, let's all cross our fingers for Louis and for, gridlocked Granny and all of our other patients.
So funny.
Our rounds seem to be completed for the day and go do our charting.
That's right. Don't want to get behind.
No, don't want to get behind on charting. In the meantime, where can folks find us?
Well, they can find us at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram and or TikTok. They can email us, WatchersPodNJ. You can call or text us at 856-336-8986. You can find me on Instagram at AQAndreaQ.
And you can find me at Jody_Mim, JODIE_MIM.
And until next week.
Until next week.
Bang yourself in the head.
Get in the car.
Go to
New Jersey.